Thank you. And thank you, everybody, Nicole, Mons, Lisa, for your contributions today. They were very valuable. We are out of time, and I just want to give enough time for Jackie and I to give a debrief today to everyone. But thank you again for your contributions. It was really interesting, and enjoy the rest of your day, the three of you. But thank you. I hope you stay for the last 10 minutes.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Everyone. So thank you, everybody, for joining the first day of the Sustainable Finance Forum. I would like to extend my gratitude to all of today's speakers and facilitators who provided us an awful lot to think about. I encourage all of you, both our speakers and participants, to join us for tomorrow's session from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We've got another fabulous lineup of speakers and sessions tomorrow, including one on the role of culture in ESG practice, embedding human rights into finance and investment decision-making, and the road to decarbonisation. But before I go, I'd like to hand back to our fabulous MC, Jackie Johnson, to share her thoughts around the key takeaways from day one. So please don't leave us just yet. I'm sure Jackie will have some really interesting things to say. Over to you, Jackie.
Thanks, Kylie, and great panel, which gave me time to really reflect on the flow from, we started the day hearing from Helen, obviously from an ASX perspective and a market perspective, and then an economist in Richard talking about particularly Australia and the economic fortunes post-COVID and how COVID has actually shaped our economy. But then the very rich conversation from our board of directors about who really are at the apex of decision making in terms of companies, and also now just hearing about transition. And what strikes me as I've threaded through all of those conversations is it would be easier if you're a newcomer to the area of responsible investing going, I'm a little bit confused here. Minute you're talking about do no harm, and we've just heard from the previous panel about screening for no negative impact, but now there's a swing to actually screening for positive impact. And we heard from Lisa about the social housing investment as an example. And I think what we really need to consider, and I'd urge you all to come back for tomorrow's session, it's about understanding how you do no harm and you do good. And I think the challenge for me when I research a lot more in the environmental social space is they come from a different root of knowledge. Environmental is very much engineering science, where social has come from the social sciences. And so it is not confusing that all of us in the finance sector are having a challenge of how do we actually think about this? And particularly when a lot of rating tools are trying to give us an answer. And we've just heard in the previous panel about the rating tools and how data is so important, but we're actually bringing two things together, as is SDGs. And in fact, we're bringing three because we're bringing the governance together. And so I think for us, we need to all consider how do we balance and hold the two in our mind, which can often seem at odds with each other. And that's why we talk about trade-off, is because we're trying to do no harm and then think about, but how do we do good? And then, and all the research on corporate social irresponsibility says part of the problem is people either think you're an irresponsible company or a responsible, but it's not either or. In fact, we see really good companies have an error of judgment at times, and judgment became a very strong word in the board of directors panel. And I also reflected on, here we are in a finance forum, which I've spent a lot of my career, but I originally came from a health science and safety science background. And we would expect to hear a lot about numbers, a lot about processes, and yes, we have, but I want to sum up the most frequent words that I counted throughout the session. Judgment, focus, stakeholders, shareholders, collaboration, engagement, hearts and minds, relationships, learning, language. There was more dominance of language that actually was about people. And we must remember the finance sector is a people business, and we're here to create value for people. And I think if we frame our leadership around that, we will make the judgments about how do we make sure we're not doing harm, and how do we do good, and how do we understand how we price for those externalities that do either create harm or limit us, really looking at opportunity and strategy. So they've been my insights for the day, Carly, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. I have learned so much from all the panelists and the speakers, and such a privilege to be here with so many other participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I think that's a really good way to summarise it. You know, the finance sector is a people business, and this is often what we say about topics like modern slavery and climate change. Ultimately, the decisions that we make are impacting on people and people's lives. So the more that we can create value for people, the more that we can do to ensure that our judgments don't harm people or planet. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us on the first day of the Sustainable Finance Forum. We really hope that you join us again tomorrow, and that you read through the agenda and are as engaged as you all have been on the chat function and the Q&A function as you were today. But for everyone else, I will let you either get back to your restriction-free city, or for those of us with kids, I'll let you get back to whatever's left of homeschooling for the day. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks again, Jackie.